Hi, my name's Lindy Cowling. Welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. Email is info@lindycowling.co.uk, and the way to contact me is via email, please. The title of this video today is Busting Blueprints, March 2017 broadcast. Dun dun dun, sounds dramatic. Busting Blueprints, March 2017 broadcast. So, as you know, this is an experiential humanitarian channel, which means the information that I share is through personal and professional experience. So having said that, as we all know, we are at a pivotal point in our evolution at the moment where many of us have the opportunity now to leave behind our original templates, leave behind our original blueprints, and step forward into the 12D blueprint of consciousness. A state of consciousness that begins at the 0 point neutral energy field of creationary ability, of creation consciousness, and can go all the way up the scale as part of our evolution. And it starts as an entry point at 0 point field of consciousness, neutral consciousness, pure consciousness, creation consciousness, and then goes 5D up to 12D. And many of us are at a point, an entry point to that blueprint. A byproduct of being at the entry point of that blueprint is that the habitual way of being, the habitual way of doing, the habitual way of living, the programmed way of living, the belief system way of living, the who we thought we were and are way of living is being thrown up right in front of our faces. And many people are not experiencing this as a smooth transitionary process. They are experiencing it as elements of crisis. That is perfectly understandable and perfectly, let's call it, normal. Because when there have been generations of thinking a certain way, being a certain way, doing a certain way, certain belief systems, certain ways of being in society, and suddenly there is an activation in consciousness in you where you are suddenly questioning all this, or people around you are questioning all this. It can be amazing and illuminating, but it can be quite scary for the personality involved. And there can be a knee-jerk response into part of your consciousness, part of you wanting to move forward, wanting to expand, wanting to, we could say, ascend, wanting to open up in that way. But at the same time, there's a tug of war, that knee-jerk response, that default response, wanting to hang on to, cling on to the way things have always been felt by you and thought by you and experienced by you, the way things have always been done, what you've always believed. And there can be like a tug of war internally, and this can become painful. It can become painful for people physically because there is a lot of resistance to this change. So this tug of war, left, right, left, right. It can be very challenging for them mentally because they may be frightened to step forward or frightened to be seeing the world differently, but at the same time, part of them feels pulled to go back to the old way because it's familiar. It's like the rabbit being let out the cage and then thinking, you know, it was safer in the cage and went to run back. That's a habitual response. It's quite understandable. But I'm going to go a little bit deeper than that because at the moment I'm just touching on levels of the personality and levels of the emotion, like how you feel about it and the habitual side of it. But if we go deeper than that, these blueprints, these original templates, these old templates that we're coming away from, and old blueprints, basically they have been, shall I say, but they are for millions still, being held in place in a number of ways. And there are a number of layers to it, which is why people are having knee-jerk responses and reacting in a way where they think, well, why am I reacting like this now? The old templating, the old blueprints, in some ways I could describe that they have been set in place as an aspect of consciousness. But they haven't just been set in place as an aspect of consciousness. I'm talking about the old ones now, the original blueprints now. In some cases, they have been interfered with a little bit, doctored a little bit, those blueprints, intentionally and non-intentionally. So you can have a blueprint there, and of course the blueprint is affected by a person's, well, energetic compounds, I want to say compounds, the energetic makeup, the being, the crystalline side of it. I want to keep using the word compounds again. The blueprint is affected and can be altered and inadvertently or intentionally manipulated in a way by one's emotions. That blueprint can be affected by one's physical choices in life. Let's use a simple example, like an alcoholic. That there's an original blueprint that has been affected by family genetics, inherited traits. So let's use the example of an alcoholic. There's a long list of alcoholics in the family. His father was the nearest one in generations to him. He's trying to come away from this blueprint. The blueprint is being affected by all of that generational, shall we say, history has affected his original, let's call it the old blueprint. There is the composition of what his physical body is comprised of at this moment in time. I hesitated there because not all bodies are comprised the same at the moment. There's people are going through so many changes, you know, in their energy field, that it's shifting everything. So the blueprint, the whole blueprint, is affected by where they're at with that. His actual behavior, so the alcoholic who keeps reaching for the bottle of alcohol, so there's nothing to do with judgment. I'm explaining it in energy terms with the blueprint. Reinforcing the blueprint, reinforcing the energetic signature of the blueprint. So you can see where I'm going here, layer upon layer upon layer. Then the personality of the individual, his emotion attached to why he is reaching for the alcohol. perhaps he feels great shame or anger or whatever, that contributing to the holding of the blueprint. Then the person's actual habitual thought pattern keeps them having a response to the blueprint. So let me give you, so say, again, we'll use the example of the alcoholic. Can't stop thinking about alcohol, 24/7. I know you can say, yeah, that goes with it, but I'm explaining in energy terms how it affects the keeping in place of the old blueprint. There's lots of layers. There's thoughts, there's personality, there's the emotion, there's the state of energetic composition of the energy body and the human body involved as to what compounds there are involved in that old blueprint and are contributing to holding the old blueprint in place. And so when somebody has something like this coming up for them, they run into a tug of war, really, in their own consciousness, which presents as a tug of war in the mind, a tug of war in the body. A lot of people are getting a lot of pain in the body. If it's health related, they're getting a lot of pain in the body because the body consciousness is speaking that way about that tug of war to do with transitioning up. I mean, an easy way of describing this with special kind of energetic photography, Cowling photography. When somebody has had an arm or leg amputated, with this special kind of photography, the energy field can be photographed and the arm or leg is still there. Even though physically it's been amputated, using this photography, the arm or the leg is still there. And the person will complain of having pain in the foot that's now gone, or pain in the hand that's now gone. And it will show up with this special kind of energetic photography that it's still there. So what they're feeling, even though it's physically not there, they are responding to the original energy field or the original blueprint, if you like, the original template. Even though the foot, the hand or the arm or the leg is gone, they can still feel the pain of it. And it shows up in photography, in this special kind of photography. So they're not imagining it, they are experiencing what they're experiencing because the template or the blueprint is still there, even if they're physically not. So this is the magical part of this, because we can apply this across the board to how people are responding with the coming away from the old blueprinting. Because even if physically or mentally or emotionally they feel like they have moved, or they think they're moving beyond that, there is a component somewhere in there that is still holding, just like the Cowling photography with the amputees, and it's showing that it's still there. They keep looping back on to that original blueprint, even though it's defunct, not functioning for them anymore. So why I've called this busting blueprints is there are a number of angles to this which are quite complicated, quite complex to explain in one video, and most of what I'm doing here is I get a proportion of it and then I don't get the rest of it till I'm literally live in front of you. So it's coming through live. That's why you'll see me hesitate for a second before it comes out of my mouth. So I haven't, in a way, I haven't thought it through. That's not how I work. It comes straight from, direct from my heart, or direct from my source, whatever. I'm doing it direct from there. So there is a number of compositions to this blueprint, and why people are having a knee-jerk response, a habitual response to going back into it. Only one level of it is the habit of it. That is a powerful level of it, mind, but it's only one level of it. It is the other aspects coming into alignment in present day reality and time, all coming into alignment, which enables, almost I see it as a set of locks being thrown open suddenly, where suddenly You are no longer attached to that blueprint. And for every single person, it's different that's keeping them still looped there. For many, it is habitual, thought habitual, or mind habitual, or programs, generation of programs habitual. Closely aligned with that, the emotional, definitely the emotional component to it. That's none of these are separate, but in one or more of those elements, I'm going to keep using the word compounds, is the thing that is holding us and people still tied to it. But they're all ingredients to this blueprint. And in some, it will be all those elements holding them there. In other people, it'll be one or two. And in other people, it'll be like 3 or 4, different. But the emotions is a big one. So the emotional response to what's coming up for you, the emotion is keeping you linked to that old blueprint, that old template. It's also where you're at in your own personal state of evolution. If you are more into rainbow body, if you're more crystalline, if you're going quantum, if you're going galactic, every single person slightly different rates to another. So the actual chemical composition of where they're at affecting on the response to the blueprint, because there is a chemical composition to the blueprint. Let's call it a compound again. I can't get away from that word, compound. So that's affecting why you're looping back. Also, let us not forget, really importantly, your physical, actual human physical responses, your physical decisions, your physical actions, physical changes that everything in you is telling you needs to be made. It could be dietary, it could be habitually, it could be addiction wise, it could be relationship wise, it could be, well, these are all habit wise really, it could be work wise, lifestyle wise, all of these that require physical change, physical action to prevent you looping back into that blueprint. And again, if you are falling in those categories, don't be hard on yourself, because it's part of the process. It's part of the transition. Nobody who's come in through the old wiring, the old blueprinting, I'm not talking about people that have already arrived here that are already of a different blueprint. I'm talking about the old wiring. Anyone that comes in that way, they're all going through this bit of the process. Some are going through it much easier than others, like a walk in the park. But the majority are not, because they're looping back into the original template or blueprint. And that's normal. It's normal until you have a recognition of what's happening, and then you release. It doesn't matter what end you start. On a list of 5 things, it doesn't matter if you start at number 5 or number 1 or number 3. As long as you start somewhere. And how I see it is a series of locks being thrown. Not locked, but unlocked. Like boom, 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 boom. Like the whole lot comes into line. The whole energetic state comes into line. The embodiment of the blueprint, the 12D blueprint, comes into alignment. You are able to receive the alignment of it, the upgrading of you, the updating of you on all levels. And it's like, you can't go into this wonky, you can't go into this pissed, so to speak. You can't go in on one level to your 12D blueprint and all the others be out of whack. It's a combination, so that it's like when they lock up bicycles, they put a chain on it. And you have to get the combination of numbers right. That's exactly how I see it. They all line up and then boom, 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 the whole lot. Then you're into that state of consciousness. But until you hit that point, and nobody's hitting it, they're all hitting it at different points, it's an actual part of the evolutionary step. There is a part of it where there is this little bit of resistance and pull and push, because you don't forget the mind as well, the ego, it knows, all of your system knows, hang on a minute, something very different is happening here. And your fight and flight response to that, your survival response to that, in some people, in most people, is very strong. And the body will react like, and the mind will react like, and the ego will react like, uh-oh, this is a big change? Is this some kind of letting go of control here? Is this some kind of threat to the system? Because your fight and flight response all the time is trying to protect you. It's not trying to go for you or attack you. It's trying to protect you. And it kind of might misinterpret what's going on, what's happening. And so there's this there can be this internal tug of war, energetic tug of war, really, between the two. And, I've heard it said, some people say, oh, no, there's no pain for people or distress for people moving from one blueprint for another. Quite frankly, that's bollocks. Most people are hitting this stage because most people come from the old carbon blueprints, and they are responding in the old carbon way to coming free from that blueprint, which is part of the process. And unless you are born here not of an original carbon blueprint, which there are people born here not of those blueprints, and they are not having to go through what I call the long way round and transition from one lot of wiring in a way to the next, then they do go through this bit of the process. Some go through it easier than others. Some finding it enormously difficult. Everybody's different, but I want to reassure you, it is part of it. It's part of it. And don't beat yourself up and think, well, why can't I get my head to do what I want? Why am I finding it so difficult? Why am I reverting back? Because all of these things have to be in line, like the chain that when we lock our bicycles up, and you have to get the number combination. Everything has to be in line. All the energetic body, not just that. How the thoughts are affecting your energetic body and the original blueprint. How your emotions are, how let's call it your previous soul history baggage, the actual rate of vibration and the way you are running the chemical structure here, the compounding here, is also where you're at in that affecting on how you're being affected by your old blueprint. The strength of your own personality, the strength of your emotions. There are many ingredients chucking in there. And again, if I use the example here, when we're talking about busting blueprints, busting them, again, Curlian photography, where you can photograph where somebody has had an arm or leg amputated and they feel the pain of it there, and on photograph, the energy field is running round the now physically missing arm or leg. They're not imagining that they can still feel it there because their original blueprint or template is telling them it's still there. So their mind and their emotions and their body and their energy is responding to the original template or blueprint. I mean, it's quite amazing, really, isn't it? It's magical, really. So it's powerful stuff. So getting your head round it, getting your heart round it, understanding what's happening takes a lot of the fear out of it. Not beating yourself up, not wrestling with it, and understanding that you're right in the heart of a process here between two states of consciousness, two blueprints, the old way and the purity 0 point entry point of consciousness for 12D blueprint. Well, understanding what's going on and that you're not just, in a way, having an addictive response to something and just leaping back into it. Understand that there is a bigger picture here, I think is very, very helpful. And how really we bust those old blueprints and bust out of those old blueprints, it is really a process again. It sounds so corny. But because it is all these things coming into alignment, Again, it's taking different amounts of time for different people, depending on all those characteristics, the chemical characteristics, the emotional characteristics, the mental characteristics. Are you physically listening to everything else might be lined up? Are you physically making the physical changes required, which for you, for everybody is different? Are you physically listening to that? Are your emotions keeping you hooked back in there? Are your beliefs, are your old programming, is a knee-jerk? The power of habit is extraordinary. And sometimes it can be so deep that it goes beyond the level of conscious thought, and it's a subconscious or unconscious, or, you know, a thought that's so deeply in there that you're not even aware of doing it. Like somebody who drives a car, who they don't logically think, I must now change gear, I must now turn the wheel, I must now turn back. Or we don't consciously think about breathing, we just do it. It's the same kind of thing. It's a knee-jerk thing. It's under the surface, and it is, people are coming away from them. They are transitioning out of that state of consciousness, but it is this process. It's all these different things in line. And we mustn't forget the physical and the chemical compound side of it. Their chemical compounded structure at that time, certain things slowing it down, slowing down that transition into the new blueprint, but also keeping them bound to the old. Now, if, as and when, and I'm sure there's going to be more information for me on this because I feel there is, then I will share it. What I will say is I know that we are busting out those blueprints, and it's a combination of these things. And there are going to be, and I'm sure that they are already here, other things that are helpful to coming out of those blueprints and stepping into the new. And some of those, again, might be certain sounds, certain techniques, certain therapies, certain frequencies, certain pictures, certain ways of unlocking the bicycle chain on the bike. You know, numbering, da-di-da-di-da, how I see it, all different ways. And I'm sure in the time that we are stepping into, that more of those helpful things are going to be there and are forming now, so that can help people open up into the new blueprint. So, I mean, lastly, if you are one of the people caught in the middle of this, just, you know, cut yourself some slack. You can try and identify, if you can logically identify, is it my emotion keeping me this? Is it a physical actual addiction to sugar, or a physical actual addiction to alcohol, a physical actual addiction to drugs? Is it physical changes I need to make? Is it, am I being emotionally honest with myself? Is it life changes I've got to make? Is it a habitual thought response? Am I fighting this because I'm really scared of it? Is it because it's always been done this way? Is it my family expect it this way? Da-di-da-di-da. There are so many different levels to this. And for some people, it doesn't have to be painful. But for the majority of old wiring consciousness coming out of that, they are going through this part of the process. It hasn't meant that anything's gone wrong or they've done anything wrong. It's part of leaving behind the old and stepping into that clear state of blueprint, the 12D blueprint that begins at 0 point new energy. My cat's just come to remind me to get off camera now. Look at that. Anyway, on that note, I will love you and leave you. Hope you found that helpful. Oh, cat's opening my bag. And on that note, I will love you and leave you. Thank you, as always, for subscribing to this channel. I do hope that you found that helped. I will love you and leave you. Oh, and as a last note, I want to say a profound thank you To the people that have nominated me for an industry award, actually, a 2017 Health, Wellness and Beauty Award, being basically in service to others and enabling them to improve their health, and wellness, really, spiritually, I guess. I was really, really touched to hear that I have been put forward and shortlisted so far. So thank you so much. I really was touched by that. Thank you so much. Anyway, I will love you and leave you. Take care until we meet again. And hopefully when we meet again, we may have busted some more of those blueprints. Bye.